Hey, what's up? It's your boy Bobby Sapphire, and today we're going to talk about the deck I took to my store showdown this weekend and came in first place. It's Jango Fett. Jango Fett Space Deck. Look at that fire spray. All right, let's check it out. Whoa, we're going to have company! All right, this event took place at TJ's Cafe and Games in Milford, Mass. I've been going to TJ's since the late 1990s. It's one of the first places I ever played cards in the basement at TJ's. We had 13 people, which was a little lower than I thought. I thought we'd get more around like 18, 20, maybe even 25, just people hyped to play with set 3. The promos were the set 2 promos, but they gave out Twilight packs. I will say, events in Massachusetts, the store owners really struggle with advertising and letting people know about events. For example, there's a sealed showdown today for set 3, and only one person showed up, and most people didn't even know it occurred. So there's that. I was able to take it down. I went 4-0. I only dropped one game in the finals, basically because of a bad mull, but also I was playing like a really good player, Ben Winterhalter, who came in second with Cad Tarkentown. You can see, so I came in first, and then we had 5 other subs from Discord, from our K2D Patreon, make the top 8, which was great. So really excited to see that. And then I, was able to take it down in the final game. I had the change of heart on the Professor Numpty hyper change of heart if my opponent didn't concede, but he did. So that was going to be sweet. And yeah, just excited to win one and just excited to see how awesome this Jango deck was on the table. I think it's actually a lot better than I originally thought, and I think it's even better. I think we can make it better, but let's check out why the deck is so good. All right, the overall strategy of this deck is to be a rush down space deck a la Boba Red from set 2. We're doing a lot of the similar things. However, Jango's ability to exhaust enemy units, including leaders, is like the thing that puts this deck over the edge in terms of winning the race. I've actually been super impressed by how Jango has played, even more so than I thought he would be. But so the strategy is to use ISB Agent, Elite Starfighter, or P-38, and maybe Daring Raid to set up an early Tarkentown so that we can build a board with generally weak units, 3/1s like Greedo and Death Star Stormtrooper, as well as 2/1 TIE LNs in space. So we do that. Those guys, it's harder for our opponents to kill them because they don't have a board. We use pumps like Breaking In, Surprise Strike to do max damage even through Sentinels. And then we top out at Triple Dark Raid with Fett's Fire Spray, which still comes to play ready because Jango is a Fett. That was his ship once. And the Ruthless Raider. And the thing I love about Ruthless Raider, well, we've always known since set 1 that Ruthless Raider is an amazing unit and card and ship. But now with it coming into play and exhausting with Jango's ability, I've been long waiting for the deck that is the best Ruthless Raider deck, and I think we finally found it in Jango Fett. This card is absolutely cracked in this deck, and it's a major reason why I think I won so many games yesterday. All right, so we talked about it a little already, but the turn 1 structure is to ideally drop 2 1-drops, right? We want to use ISB Agent and ping something with an event in our hand, and then burn it with Tarkentown, kill it, dead, and then play another 1-drop. Ideally Greedo, since his flip could potentially tap something later on in the game, but if we want to be in space, it's the TIE LN fighter, and then of course we have some Death Star Stormtroopers as well. Just being able to pressure early with these 3/1s in addition to the ISB Agent lets us build some damage and give our opponent one more thing they have to deal with while we're pushing damage. ISB Agent is actually even more cracked in this list than he has been in the Boba deck. For one, when we played Boba Red and had ISB Agents in our hand late game, they were just dead. They were resources. We were almost never going to use them. In Tarkentown Jango Fett, we actually get to use ISB Agent as a 1-mana tapper. And so for 1 resource, we can actually tap leaders. We can flip your Yoda, drop an ISB Agent for 1, still be able to do something like a huge Triple Dark Raid, or even drop a Fire Spray or a Ruthless Raider in some cases. Not only that, but Jango's ability works on regular combat damage. So ISB Agent, if he's not dealt with right away, which he shouldn't be because he's on the table after killing something with Tarkentown, he can actually just hit into something and tap it down with Jango's ability. This kind of strategy in the game makes our ability to race so good, and it makes other decks really, really struggle to race against us. And then Daring Raid is also, if we have Daring Raid and a Greedo or Daring Raid and a TIE LN, we can also just fire off the Daring Raid to Tarkentown something if we want. if they play a 2 HP thing, we can kill something and save the Tarkin Town for later, and it still lets us build a 1-drop. So being able to do 2 things on turn 1 is really the goal of this deck for the most part. The other times we might not want to go that route. For example, we might want to just play a 3/2 and not worry about pinging something dead. There's several reasons we might do this. We might want to just have a sturdier ship online earlier. Might want to save the ping for later. We might have a really good hand where we have like Kylo's TIE Silencer and the P-38, which would allow us to ping and tap something and potentially Tarkin Town it later. And then we also have 3 Cartel Spacers, which are pretty, utilitous at this point. We know how good this card could be. It can tap. It can also just be a backup turn 1 play when we mulligan and we have nothing else, and just a ship that gets in there and it's yellow. So if you have another one, it can turn on the tap for the second Cartel Spacer. So overall, we have a ton of turn 1 plays, and what I love about this is that it lets us mulligan aggressively. Because we have so many ways we can have an amazing turn 1, we can mulligan aggressively, find the one, if the first one doesn't fit just right, we can give it another go, and if not, we have a ton of backup plans to fall back on. All right, our mid-game strategy is essentially to play whatever 3-drop we think is best for the situation. Almost always, the Elite P-38 Starfighter is going to be huge if we have initiative. It's going to be huge on a leader flip turn. If we have one and we have other plays, we really want to try and evaluate when the best time to tap something is. It can also just be really good if we think like we're facing something that has 4 attack in space, something like an Azatuk Ambusher or the Millennium Falcon. It's really the one that gives us the most play. The safest ones are the 7th Fleet Defender and Punishing One. Those aren't going to die too often to anything, to many things our opponent has. The Lurking TIE Phantom is the 3-drop that like we're most afraid to put out. It's really not great against any deck that has a lot of space, and because space is such a powerful strategy right now, a lot of decks will have space. If we didn't lead in space with something, Lurking TIE could be a little bit more open to getting killed by another ship. It's really not great into ECL decks. The thing is, when the Lurking TIE Phantom does come out and hit, it's pretty insane, and it can be still really, really good hit off Triple Dark Raid, which we'll get to later. But this deck has no 4 or 5-drop cards, so it's really about stacking the deck with these 3-drops and playing the ones that make the most sense for our strategy. We can drop a 3-drop, basically any of them on turn 2, and then one of these along with a Daring Raid, or a 1-drop on turn 3. And then these are also things that off Triple Dark Raid we're looking to hit. Obviously, we don't always want to gamble on Triple Dark Raid, but sometimes we have to. And having a lot of these ships is really important. I can't stress enough how good the P-38 Starfighter is to tap something, kill 4 attack things, clean up things on the ground. When we can save our Tarkin Town because things like P-38 will clean up ships, it's really, really strong. Punishing One is also just really great as a 3/4, and then we actually can get the untap once in a while. But whichever one we think is good for turn 2, it really doesn't matter as long as we think we can hit with it the next turn, which we should be able to if we played our turn 1 structure correctly, as I mentioned before. We just want to start the damage pile on because we have such a robust late game and tapping that we should be able to win any race at any time. Triple Dark Raid is the strongest thing about our deck. It's a 3-cost event. It looks at the top 7. We play a card for 5 less, right? So like with 4 resources, we can play our bombs. The Fett's Fire Spray, Ruthless Raider. It gets to hit that turn. It goes back to our hand. We get to play it again next turn. It's really good on the Jango flip turn because you can play one of these, ideally with the Ruthless Raider, tap something down. Even Fett's Fire Spray, though, you could play and you'll just hit for 5 and be pretty happy with that. Be able to drop it next turn as well. In general, you don't want to play Triple Dark Raid before the 4 resource turn because you want to have the 4th resource available to play one of these cards. Sometimes you have to, or there are games where I have like 2, maybe even 3 Triple Dark Raids in my hand, and I just want to fire one off on turn 2 if I don't have another ship. Like if I'm holding 2 or 3 Triple Dark Raids, it's possible I don't have a 3-cost ship, and in that case, like just getting the ping ship P-38 or just hitting for 4 with the Lurking TIE Phantom, or even sometimes just pulling the Tapper the 2/3 cartel spacer and hitting for 2 and having that in our hand for next turn. Triple Dark Raid's really flexible, and it does allow us to gamble a little bit. I try not to play it when I don't have 4 resources available, though, and it's probably the thing I want to do most on the Jango flip turn, since it allows us to play a 6-drop, get it back in our hand, and drop it again next turn. Ideally, I think like the Ruthless Raider is the thing that I just want to keep playing over and over, but obviously Fett's Fire Spray has proven itself in this game as like a huge hammer at the end of the game. But this is just the most broken thing our deck does. Yes, we have awesome tapping in Jango's ability. Yes, we have an awesome start being able to auto Tarkin Town things. But this is the thing that lets us go over the top and do something absolutely busted. All right, so I talked a little bit about this on the previous slide, but these are all the ships, like looking at all the vehicles that we have in the deck, or at least the one I played in my store showdown. The one that I haven't mentioned yet, though, is the Heavy Persuader tank. This thing is sick. I was just looking for things that like maybe could be awesome TDR targets that also can get played just to like damage something and tap with Jango Fett, and this thing came up, and I was like, oh, I should try this. This is cool because if you exploit 2 things, you can actually play this with Triple Dark Raid just for 3. Like, you don't have to pay any extra resources. And of course, like, remember, exploit works with everything, so you can do it off Triple Dark Raid, and then you could also just exploit one thing. For example, maybe a Greedo, and you want to flip the Greedo for even more damage, or just an ISB agent who's already attacked, or you don't really care about the 1 damage. The Heavy Persuader tank coming in for 6 and hitting right away, or just, you know, being played to do 2 damage tap and being a bomb is really great. And I actually think, like, if we can fit more than 1 in the deck, I'd love to fit more than 1. But Triple Dark Raid, it can whiff. Even though we have a lot of vehicles in the deck, it can whiff sometimes, and I've full whiffed. I've sometimes just hit a tile in. And one thing you have to keep in mind is when you have no 4 or 5 cards in your deck, and the thing that we want to do most is Triple Dark Raid, like, we are just going to have to gamble a little bit, and that means sometimes just playing one of these ships. I think the Persuader tank was fun as a 1 of, maybe could be a 2 of, has a lot of potential, but in general you're not necessarily looking to take out all your ships. You could also Triple Dark Raid into one of these things and then eat it with the Heavy Persuader tank since you were going to bounce it back to your hand anyway. And I put the question mark up there because there's a lot of ships and vehicles that you could play in this deck that I didn't play. Merc gunships were in there a lot, and there's something that I thought about and kind of wanted to play as a turn 1/3/2 ship. I think you could also consider playing something like the Pirated Starfighter, which hits for 3 and bounces a 1-drop back to your hand, since we have so many 1-drops. I think you can really do whatever you want with this kind of thing, and there are obviously a whole slew of new vehicles with exploit that you could take advantage of. But in general, I think we just want to hit for the most possible damage. But I did want to shout out at all these cards, which I think I've pulled every single one of these at some point this week between playtesting and my tournament, just with Triple Dark Raid. All right, this deck requires a robust event package because of ISB Agent. It's really important to have an event on turn 1, and sometimes it can be scary, and there are definitely games in practice where, you forget to keep an event in your hand. You want to try and make those practice games not real games. The ones that I think are automatic are Triple Dark Raid, No Good to Me Dead, Surprise Strike, Daring Raid. I think I would absolutely make sure I played the deck with all of those. I think they're all just too strong, especially Surprise Strike and Daring Raid. I mean, obviously the whole deck is Triple Dark Raid, so we're not considering cutting that. The bottom row are all things that you could consider. We tested with Waylay quite a bit. There are some larger units that could be a problem. CAD unit is actually like a huge problem, but Waylay doesn't necessarily solve that problem because just they can play him again. You might be able to get like 1 attack in, but probably not. I really liked breaking in. I wanted to try 3 of the pump and just go 6 pumps, and I thought that worked really well. Swoop down can be really strong. People sleep on swoop down, but it's a thing that lets you, for example, kill a Sabine when it flips before it can get a Darksaber. It's just like that sets you so far ahead. And then I think some other spicy cards are Open Fire to take out Conquered Dawn Interceptors, Outmaneuver if you really just want to abandon the entire ground and not even play Greedo, or Death Star Stormtrooper. You could really just lean into Outmaneuver. And then, of course, Force Choke is a little dangerous because they draw, but it also kills so many problematic units for cheap. DJ, Tech, Sabine, Cassian, Fugitive Slaves. What are they called? Yeah, Fugitive Slaves. All those things. But we found that you generally need 15 to 17 events. I went with 16. We've played as many as 17, 18. But I think 15, 16, 17, that's the sweet spot. And then when you have 9 between Surprise Strike, Daring Raid, and Triple Dark Raid, it leaves you with a mix of all these others. And if you think that there's another event that you would play, shout me out in the comments. I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to try it out. And here it is. Here's the whole list together. Shout out to swoodb.com for just being the GOAT. This is the list I ran. I went through all the pieces. I don't think there's anything in here I missed, but this is how it looks all together. I think this deck is really strong, and I'm really looking forward to continue playing it. I'm happy that I have it fully sleeved up, and if there were a PQ this weekend, I would probably be bringing this deck and not doing a tournament report about it and a deck tech. And I'll have this thing published and linked in the comments, so you can check it out, make a copy, try it yourself, and let me know how it is. I don't do sideboard guides, but I will talk a little bit about sideboarding here. If you want to learn about sideboarding, check out Advanced Sideboarding by Bobby Sapphire. One of my erstwhile videos, I'll have it linked in the description. One of the things that I think is the most important thing about sideboarding, and if you've watched any of my content before, you know the most important thing is what to cut. So, yesterday was my first day playing like a lot of sideboarding in an event, so I had to like think on the fly, which I really think is helpful. I played against Cad Bane. I cut all the 1 health guys. I brought in things like Bazine, Change of Heart, the Waylay. Any deck that's control that's going to basically scoop to a Lurking TIE Phantom, I bring in the TIE Advanced. I want to build a huge TIE Phantom, or if I think someone doesn't have a lot of space and I can really make it far with a Lurking TIE Phantom, I do that. Generally, I'm always boarding in the 2 Bazines and the Waylay. The Waylay should maybe be main deck. I would like to fit it in maybe over the Swoop Down. But I basically always find 2 cards that I think are bad and bring in Bazine. Bazine's obviously insane. You get to look at their hand. You get to see how free everything is for only 2 resources. She also is a body that works really well with Jango's ability, right? Like they're going to leave her alone because she only hits for 1, and then they flip their leader, and you get to ram her, sacrifice her into the leader just to exhaust it. It's a really, really strong play. So I really like Bazine, and I think you could even make a case for having some in the main deck. I just prefer to be a little bit more balls to the wall aggro in game 1, and then, figure out exactly what I want to do, and then have time to Bazine. And then Change of Heart is for any kind of mirror matchup or anything that someone's going to play, get ahead, have a big unit that you can steal, and then potentially even eat with your exploit card, I guess, if you were on 9 mana. But really, it's to deal with opposing fire sprays and other big units like CAD that are otherwise problematic. And then I get a lot of questions about Wolf over the new ship. The thing that we liked about Wolf, and I talked to TD Tada a lot about this, Professor Numpty, is that Wolf is for the whole turn. If they deal with that 3/3 ship, the Tri-Fighter, you don't get that ability anymore. But all I have to do is use Wolf as a spell, play, as 2 resources, play this guy. They can't heal this turn. That's really strong. And, they obviously have to deal with him. He's not hard to deal with, but the effect is there. And if they ever don't deal with him, you get that effect next turn too. And he hits for 3, so he's got Saboteur. There's a lot of strength to it, but you're happy to drop this thing alongside a 3 cost on turn 5 if you think your opponent's going to heal a lot. And honestly, you really don't even need it in this meta until like a Rey flip or a Yoda flip. You can deal with a little incremental life, but it's only when those leaders flip that you would really need to like spend the 2 mana like I said, it's like, think of it as an event. I'm paying 2, they can't heal. But really, I don't really have good advice as what to cut. If Lurking TIE Phantom is really bad in your matchup, I think cutting 2 Lurking TIE for 2 Bazine is just fine. You could even cut all 3 for Waylay. You just have to remember that if you're going to cut ships and not put ships back in, like we don't have any ships in our sideboard other than the Advanced, it's making your TDRs really, really just a larger gamble. And if you don't want to gamble, or if you can't handle gambling, then I would be really safe about when you do that. Yeah, so that's sideboarding. And then if you have any specific sideboarding questions, you can leave them as a comment. All right, that's it. I hope you liked the deck. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. Please leave a comment if you have any questions, or you just want to shout something out, or give a suggestion. Happy to do that. Other than that, if you play with the deck and you've got any feedback, hit me up. Hit me up on Discord or in the comments. Thanks for watching.